Body Safety Australia acknowledges and pays respects to all traditional custodians and elders of this nation and the continuation of cultural, spiritual and educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. This podcast was recorded in Naarm on Wurundjeri country of the Kulin Nation, and we acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to The Kids Are Okay, your go-to podcast for making the hard chats easier. On this brand new show, we'll be unpacking the big topics from the classroom, like consent, image-based abuse, intersectional practice, and inclusion for LGBTQIA+ communities. We'll be explaining what we see from our work on the ground with young people, what the data is telling and often not telling us, and finding spaces so us adults can feel empowered to do this work with young people.
Lauren, I'm so excited about this podcast. It seems like it's been years in the making, but I guess we have to go back to the beginning to explain to everybody what it is that we do.
This is so true. This is first episode. So, Deanne, who are you?
I'm Deanne Carson and I'm CEO of Body Safety Australia. So Body Safety Australia is a not-for-profit organisation that I founded in 2015, and originally it was to respond to a need for inclusive sexuality and relationship education, and also to address childhood sexual abuse and to develop a program that was really age appropriate.
Don't mind us in our first episode getting used to our podcast voices, everyone. Yeah. This will come with us with time. I'm Lauren French. I'm the Head of Education with Body Safety Australia. I came on board in about 2017 and have been around ever since, and now get to do all of the amazing programs, get to work on the ground, get to work with our team of educators and the incredible CEO I see before me.
Thanks, Lauren. I think the thing about why we wanted to do this podcast is because we see so much in the classroom. You know, our programs at Body Safety Australia range from preventing childhood sexual abuse, relationships and sexuality education, promoting positive body image, looking at how young people use digital technology to enact, their relationships and explore their sexuality. And we're talking to children from 3 years old. I mean, that's pretty amazing that we get to do that, right?
Oh, definitely, particularly because we go to a lot of schools in different spaces every year. We get to work with 5-year-olds that then become the preps, that then become the year ones and year twos, and you get to watch a young person's journey into relationships, friendships, into digital spaces.
Exactly. So when we're talking to, say, the parents in early childhood education, and we're saying, doing this work, whether it's around gender or around consent or around relationships, we know what this is going to look like for your child when they're 10 or 15. We actually get to see that unfold. It's so exciting.
It's a really special space because so often in education, in anything with young people, you work with a certain age, you work with a certain little time capsule, and what's amazing is that we get to go across the board.
Yeah. And the other thing about that, Lauren, is not only do we work with the children and the teenagers, we also work with their parents, their caregivers. We deliver professional development to educators, to teachers, people in allied health. So I feel really privileged that we get this amazing snapshot of what's happening for children and young people.
Yeah, and it gets to come back to that idea, the analogy I always use with parents and teachers and any adults is that idea of the village. We all understand that it takes a village to raise young people, and we often talk about it takes a village to protect them, it takes a village to come together, and so we want everyone involved in that village, us as external people, we want the families, the extended families, the teachers, everyone around to be on the same page with this, which I guess is another reason why we're even doing this podcast, is to have everyone in the village of the wider community on the same page.
Absolutely. And I think to that end, a lot of what we do is not just working with the children and the adults who care for them, but it's also ensuring that we're noticing the trends that are occurring. I think we were, really at the forefront when lockdown happened during COVID of understanding what was happening for children and young people in that space in remote learning. And we're in this space where not only do we have that knowledge on the ground, but we're also drawing on all of the studies that are being done academically. We've got our hands on the latest data, statistics, reports. We're working with government, we're working with academics, we're working with the children themselves. And I just feel we're in this space now where we can draw all of that together and share it.
Indeed. And what better platform than a podcast?
I know.
Oh, joy. Amazing. So because this is the first episode and we're going to spend a lot of the season unpacking really big topics, getting really in-depth in, the tricky, hard conversations that adults often have with young people, that young people are having with other young people. Because it's the first episode, I thought we'd actually unpack something around how the two of us actually got into this space in the first place. Because so often in our sessions we do an anonymous question box, you're very aware, where young people have an opportunity to ask us anything they want, completely anonymously. You get the most hilarious of questions, and I'm sure we'll do an episode dedicated to just that. But one of the questions I get asked all the time from young people ranging in primary school, secondary school, everywhere is, why did you pick this job?
I know, right? Like, why would you even want to do this job? Like, isn't it embarrassing?
And I'm like, there's nothing more fun than talking about periods and sperm with year 5s in primary school. That is the highlight of the job.
But I think that's part of it. I think that, I started in this work with another organisation. I was very fortunate to have sessional work. And I realised that I found it really easy to talk about how big is your penis going to get, or, like how much liquid comes out during a period. And I found that a lot of adults don't find that easy. And that all children and young people want is someone who is going to approach these conversations without embarrassment, without shame, with a dose of humour. And allow them to let down their guard a little bit.
Well, yeah, because the first time I was in a room, and I think some of my first sessions were with the 3 and 4 year olds, the really littlies, and we were talking about bodies, we were talking about body parts, and that ease of just, we can talk about penises and vulvas, and it's completely natural and fine. And I agree, I never had that embarrassment, that kind of, oh no, I don't know how to talk to young people about this, or oh, I'm going to get really embarrassed. And so often you'd be in a classroom where you get one of those questions that's clearly from a young person who's just testing, like they're just seeing if you're going to answer it or if they're going to be a really big laugh or whatever that is, and you answer really honestly and totally age appropriately but factually, and it's no big deal. And you're watching a lot of the educators' faces like, oh no, like they're waiting for this huge moment. Oh! Exactly. But when you're able to just answer and it's no big deal, you're giving young people permission to then ask what's important, to then have actual open conversations about it, because there's not the fear that I'm the old adult who doesn't know anything, but also is too embarrassed to say what I do know.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that got me hooked to this work, because the children would ask questions that you knew they were winding you up, or they were trying to gauge your reaction. And I think when you hit that space where you've built trust and the children and young people can ask you, am I okay? Am I normal? Am I going to be okay? Are these emotions things that other people experience as well? Or that space where a young person says, I'm not okay. There's something happening in my life that I feel shame about, that I feel afraid to share. And me, have built up enough trust that I can tell you that I need help. I think they're the magic moments.
Oh, 100%. The times where a young person wants to confide in you, whether it's something really positive, whether it is a scary thing that they're needing a safe person to talk to, when they're able to drop everything and bring that to you, it's that moment where you go, oh, I've done my job right. Like, no matter what, the activity we did on the day, or like what the conversation we had, like I've done that trust building to an extent where I've created a safe moment.
Absolutely. So I think when you ask, how did I get into this? Well, I was working for another organisation. I was loving the work. I was working in a lot of spaces, mostly puberty education, but really across the age ranges. And I just felt like there was more to be done. I felt like it needed to be more than sex ed. It needed to be addressing, childhood sexual abuse, because I was having so many disclosures from children and young people, and I really wanted to start a program that addressed just that. How do we prevent childhood sexual abuse? How do we work with children, but more importantly, how do we work with adults to ensure that children are being protected and empowered?
It's the village.
It totally is. And then the other aspect is that, I wanted programs that addressed relationships and sexuality that were super inclusive. Like, that was just essential to me. I wanted to make sure that every child in the classroom had an opportunity to be seen, to be valid, whether that was around gender or around sexuality or around disability, neurodivergence. I wanted to make sure that children who were perhaps from migrant or refugee communities were able to stay in the classroom and have their experiences validated.
I love that. Well, clearly, because I just came on board and did all that. But so you obviously brought this all to fruition from a dining room table in 2015, or so the story goes. I, on the other hand, I came in 2017. I just finished my undergrad degree. I was doing the classic thing that a lot of people do when they finish their degree, which is then just look in the sector and go, where are all the spaces, who are the people, and where do I want to be? And I had found Body Safety Australia and fell in love with all of the stuff. I thought it looked amazing. And I just was that hounding email person for anything, a job, a volunteer position, something. I just wanted to go and, learn and just see if that was the right fit for me. I was just starting a master's of sexology, and I kind of was always very passionate about the education space of it. I was someone growing up who had no issues talking to my friends about sex, sexuality, puberty, any of this stuff. I remember when I got to uni, I had friends coming to talk to me about it purely because they know I could say the word sex without giggling, or like it wasn't an embarrassment. But this wasn't something I thought was a job. Like, it was something that, I know was an interest. I was trying to work out where all the spaces I could fit it. And then I was finally allowed to come and volunteer. And I, rocked up all the time. I rocked up when Deanne, people weren't even there. And I just rocked up to be the super keen volunteer, until eventually got offered a educator position and was then able to start that process of learning the programs, learning, all of how to do best practice in the space while doing my master's, and just fell in love with the journey you get to take young people on in a classroom, in the program, the space you get to take parents and teachers on, the, very much effective looking at the big picture, really helping a whole school change culture or a community change culture, really thinking big impact. I work in private practice separately, and that's really micro. It's really small. You get to work with one-on-one individually, and you can see amazing changes. But this space, you get, it's just so broad. And that was so exciting to me. It really fell into my values. It fell into my worldview and how I wanted to make the world better. And it just hit everything for me.
And I think you kind of downplayed things a little bit, because we really did start at a kitchen table. So, and it wasn't just me. I founded Body Safety Australia with Whitney Yip, who is an amazing young woman, and it was at our kitchen tables. We were both single mums. We were both trying to be, the best parents we could, whilst starting this thing that we didn't know what it was. We didn't have connections in government or, any sector that could sort of springboard us into things. And you just kept turning up. And I remember we were working out of a a co-working office in Richmond, right?
Yep.
And you were turning up and you were volunteering. You're like, I'll do anything. I'll do the admin. I'll make a spreadsheet. Do you know how to make a spreadsheet, Lauren?
No, of course not. That's not my specialty at all. I was just...
No, me neither, right?
No.
But you did. You just said, I will do anything because... and I remember this really clearly. It's not just the work. Like, it's not just the talking about the sex or talking about relationships or having an opportunity to have a job. You were really clear about your ethics. You were really clear about needing to be in a space that was intersectional, needing to be in a space where young people were empowered, and needing to be in a space that was evidence-based and trauma-informed. And then, yes, you did just keep turning up. And also really embarrassing when you turned up and there was like...
No one else there.
I was working from home. Yeah.
But it is that thing. I think it's really, not to like toot our own horn for the next 30 minutes because that's a bit much, but there is something really special about a workplace and an organisation and just people that do value integrity and ethics and values and intersectionality above, all the other things at times, and in a space that creates safety for you as a employee, as you as someone who works here. And that to me is so much more important than like all the other stuff sometimes.
All right, so we started a podcast. That's awesome. We get to talk to each other.
Not like we do that every other day anyway, but yes.
For like half an hour a week.
Yeah, half an hour, 45 minutes.
Of term, right?
Indeed.
We just get to talk about the things that excite and interest us.
Yeah, and the things that we're seeing from the young people that we're working with, the things that we're hearing from parents and teachers. And we really want this to be a space where we can empower listeners to feel like you can actually have some of these conversations a little bit easier.
Yeah, awesome. And I think that, there are lots of things that we want to talk about that we've noticed over time, but we also know that sometimes things happen really quickly. Like there might be something in the media that's really impacting the children and young people, and I know that a lot of parents reach out to us or a lot of teachers reach out to us and go, how do we address this? Like last year when all the Andrew Tate stuff came up, teachers were on the phone going, how do we talk about this? How do we address this? So we felt that a podcast was a great way to do that, right? Because we could be responsive.
Exactly. It's a bit quicker. We can, have a little bit of interaction as well. And it's going to set up hopefully a format that is really great for everyone.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
And so am I.
I can't wait to watch. So, Lauren, what will this look like? Like, it's not just us sitting here just deciding what's most important for everybody to know. Like, how are we going to do this?
That's a bit dictatory. No, what we're going to do is, so there on our Instagram, if you go to our Instagram, there's going to be a link there to a form. Basically, it is an open question box for all of Australia and beyond. And so basically, if there is a question from an episode or just a question you'd like us to address, a concern, anything like that, put in your anonymous question, and at the end of each episode we'll be going through anonymous questions, and obviously next season we'll go through more. If we get a huge amount of questions, we might just do some episodes just addressing those questions. So it's a really great opportunity if you're someone who has a burning thing you want us to talk about. That's where you put it.
I love that. So essentially what we're doing is what we do in the classroom.
Yes.
But on a podcast.
You are all our students. How exciting is that for you?
What are we going to be talking about in our next episode?
Next episode, which I believe is coming out in 30 seconds from now, we're actually going to be talking about consent. So it's a little bit of our bread and butter. We're going to really be talking about consent with young people, but also about allyship and consent. So that space of not even just for the young person themselves, but for you as the adult as well. How do we create a, generation of young people, a community of people in general who value consent, who understand consent, and who are able to be, consent advocates.
So almost like we're trying to create a culture of consent, Lauren.
Look at us go.
I love that. Can't wait to find out more. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us this week and making space for these hard chats. Thanks to our amazing podcast producer, Jade Jones, and our incredible composer of this music and all music you'll hear, Jade Perry. If you want us to answer your question box questions, head to our Instagram at Body Safety Australia and follow the link in our bio.